lucrative raise in the payment. So obviously the next thing Alex do, they switch jobs to become a DevOps engineer. They find a DevOps engineer role in another textile company, Strong Fabric this time. And once they are hired as a DevOps engineer, they start doing what DevOps engineers do, DevOps engineering stuff like install Jenkins on their desktop computer under the desk, or implementing DevOps in their DevOps department. As you might guess, it doesn't really help. They still have the exact problem. Because having a DevOps department that do their DevOps, the engineering, is just another name for doing the same thing all over again. So obviously the problem is still there. And then Alex started to think that the problem is really about collaboration between the developers and their DevOps department. And then Alex comes with a brilliant idea. How about DevDevOps? DevDevOps is a collaboration between Dev and DevOps. That sounds good. And you know what? It might even make them rich. But jokes aside, obviously, Alex, they are smart. So they go and start reading about real DevOps. And Wikipedia, as all the books, agree that DevOps is a set of practices, is a methodology. It is about collaboration. And obviously that's the idea in in all of the major books in the industry, all the way from the Phoenix Project through DevOps Handbook, all the way to Accelerate. All talk about collaboration. And it turns out that it's a collaboration between different specializations. When you look at this diagram of DevOps and QA, you see that they are not interact completely. There is deep specialization, but it's also common goals, common culture, and the communication between the three. This is what DevOps is about. One more research that Alex finds very, very interesting is the state of DevOps report. And this is, as you probably know, the most important research in the DevOps space that checks where the companies stand in their DevOps journey. We are talking about 32,000 organizations that are interviewed by Nicole Forsgren and Dr. Nicole Forsgren and our team, and they discover what's going on. And one of the differentiators between high performers, the elite, and the low performers are those factors. How frequently do they deploy? What is the lead time for changes from when they finish the develop to production, time to restore service after a failure, and change failure rate, how often the releases are bad. And what Alex sees is that there is a huge uptake in the number of the companies that get DevOps right, from 7% in 2019 to 20% in 2019, 3 times uptake. And Alex wonders why. What drives this adoption of DevOps in the industry? And there are really 2 reasons. The first is, who are we users? What do we want features? When do we want them? Obviously yesterday. And lead time to changes and deployment frequency. Those 2 actually are about how fast can you take a change, can you take a new feature and put it in production in front of your users. And the other is obviously security. And it's more or less the same, right? You need to identify the problem, fix the problem, and deploy it to production as fast as possible. And this is again, deployment frequency and lead time to changes, which makes sense. I hope nothing new here for you, because we all feel this evolutionary pressure to do DevOps right? And you can see here how the gap between the elite performers and the medium and the low performers actually becomes bigger and bigger. And this is where you have the leaders that run away and the rest of the pack that falls behind all the way to the oblivions, obviously. And understanding all that, Alex propelled themselves to some very important meetings where really the decisions are made. And here is the evolutionary pressure in practice, right? So there is a boss that feels that they need to release faster, and then some ideas are thrown. Let's hire more DevOps engineers. Well, you already know, as Alex already knows, that hiring more DevOps engineers to their DevOps department doesn't really help, right? And stuff like, okay, the testers are slowing us down, let's just get rid of the testers and we will be fine, which is also like absolutely a crazy idea. And then Alex tries to suggest, how about implementing real DevOps? And you all know how this meme actually ends. One of the reasons that that happens is because of an organizational misalignment. The decisions about what to do to implement DevOps are taken up there, and Alex is right here. It doesn't mean that it's impossible to influence being down there all the way to the up there, but there is a special way on how to do it. And today, I'm going to talk to you about that. My name is Baruch Sadogursky. I'm Chief Sticker Officer at JFrog. Whoever attended the meetup a year ago probably remembers the amazing stickers that I had with me. Hopefully, I will be back next year with even more of the amazing stickers. For now, I will do as head of DevOps advocacy. I'm at Baruch on Twitter. Don't forget to follow me. The Twitter handle is conveniently on the bottom of every slide. In case you forget, there is always a chance. This is my California disclaimer. The most emotionally expressive and confrontational people are from Israel and Russia. I managed to be from both, so there is a high chance that I will offend your feelings during this talk, and I really don't much care about that. This diagram and many other wisdoms about culture is in the amazing book, The Culture Map by Erwin Meyer. If you work for a multicultural organization, and you are, don't forget to read this book. It's really, really good. The most important slide of this presentation is this. If you go to http://shownotes, you will find a special page dedicated to our meetup today, where you will find the slides already there, the video we are recording. So I hope the organizers will share the video with me, and then I will be able to put it in there. All the links for everything that I already mentioned, all the books, and even the salary survey, whatever is there. Place to comment, to rate, and as Ari already mentioned, look for the raffle of this amazing drone. It's really, really cool. All right, let's get to it. The first thing you need to start with when you want to influence somebody about anything is make sure that you know the domain. Already mentioned how I'm from Russia. Here is the leader of Soviet Russia, Vladimir Lenin, preaches to learn, and then learn more. And I already mentioned some of the books that I really hope you will find very interesting and illuminating to read. The Phoenix Project, the DevOps Handbook, and the Accelerate. Here are a couple of more. Site Reliability Engineering is about the engineering practice that implements DevOps. What else is here? The Liquid Software book. If you attended the meetup last year, you probably remember my talk was about the liquid software concept and how to update software faster. That's what this book is about. And there are a couple of more. War, Peace, and IT. That's a book by that I really, really recommend, by Mark Schwartz. And it's a book that is intended for managers, that explain to the IT leadership about DevOps. It's extremely important that you will read it so you will know how they think or don't think about DevOps. Now, if you are not into reading books as much, there are other resources, a couple of podcasts, DevOps-ish, it's a great podcast, newsletter, discussion group, and what's not, all lead by I mean, I really, really, really recommend it, cannot recommend it enough. Another one is all the recordings from different conferences and meetups. So here is an example, the recordings of DevOps Days, but there are obviously others. Another very interesting resource to look at, and that's to be on top of the technology and the methodologies and the techniques behind DevOps, is the Technology Radar from ThoughtWorks. They are a consultancy, and they collect those recommendations from their consultants as they implement them across different customers. And another flavor of Technology Radar popped up recently new is the CNCF Technology Radar, and that's the Cloud Native Computing Foundation, the home of Kubernetes, Prometheus, Istio, and tons of other cloud native related technologies. And they do the Technology Radar by serving their end users who are the part of the foundation. Very, very interesting as well. So basically you gather all that, you gather all your all the theoretical knowledge, and then you feel like, okay, I'm ready to go, I'm ready to convince my managers that DevOps is a great idea because I know it is. I read all that and I know for sure. And then you go to your boss and you get like, no. How about no? There are a lot of reasons for that. Sometimes people are just won't listen because they are bothered with other stuff. Sometimes people will promise really honestly, it's a great idea, we will get to it, they will never get to it. Sometimes people don't even believe that this is that you're right and it's a good thing, and they might talk you to the death trying to argue with you if it's good or not. In any case, it requires tons of activation energy. As just Dieter mentioned in the chat, change is hard. Change requires tons of energy, and trying to do that, you will more often than not just compelled to give up because it's really, really hard. And in today's talk, I will try to give you some tips on how to make the change without giving up. And the first and the most important one is don't try to boil the ocean. Take it easy, step by step. It's a gradual process. I will show you how you can tackle it piece by piece and make sure you move forward without giving up. There are a lot of techniques of how to influence without authority. The one that we are going to talk about is based on a book called Inference Without Authority. It's written by Alan Cohen and David Bradford many years ago. I think it's like in the 60s or something. And you can say it's in the 60s or something by the quality of their diagram. So this is the Cohen-Bradford Influence Without Authority model. It's extremely important, and don't let the quality of the diagram itself tell you otherwise. It's 6 steps, and we're going to go through those steps one by one, starting about now. The first one is, surprisingly, but super importantly, assume all our potential allies. It sounds really stupid because what's the idea there? But actually, if you think about it, you make tons of assumptions about how people will receive your ideas without actually trying, and your assumptions are usually wrong. You can say stuff like, no, I won't go to him, he's just mean and he'll probably turn me down. Or you can assume, well, I can go and try and speak with her, but it's better than I will go and try and speak with someone else. Don't do that. Assume, really try to believe that everybody are interested in implementing DevOps in our example, and give everybody a fair chance to give you the support that you want. Now, there are then a lot of allies. If you assume that everybody are allies, how do you pick with whom to start your influence? And here are some ideas. Look for forward-looking teams. The teams inside your organization that are really on the bleeding edge of innovation in terms of methodology, but also technology. Probably you will have more success with them. Also, the same teams or maybe different teams might be highly visible projects, highly visible teams, important for the management and the entire organization. Making them successful with DevOps will obviously shed a very good light on DevOps as a methodology. Don't forget that sometimes there are self-promoting cheaters and other types of douchebags, so beware of that. And the best way to distinguish between two is just talking to people. Well, water cooler chat is off the table by now, but still we might find a way to talk to people and to understand if they're interested, if they are highly visible projects, if they are looking forward and what's not. The idea, consider everybody allies and then pick the right ones. Step number 2, clarify your goals and priorities. This is very important to understand what do you want? Why are you doing what you try to do? Because you will be at best self if you understand your motives. And the first motive is where we started, right? We want DevOps because it's actually providing better results for the organization. Remember, that's the evolutionary pressure. We want our organization to be successful in the modern world. We need DevOps. It's doing the right thing. But there are also other reasons. For example, you just don't want to work in a backward organization. You want to have a nice place of work, modern, looking forward, and being on the edge of what's happening. That's absolutely reasonable. And another one, completely nothing to be ashamed of, it will propel your career. If you manage to transform your organization into DevOps, it will do good for your career, and it's completely fine. There is nothing to be ashamed of. Once you realize why you are doing it, the next question is why the other person, those who you try to influence, what is their world? What drives them? So first of all, as it's true for you, it's true for them, they want a better career. And influencing them might be easier if you can show them how what you are doing help them to get promoted or what's not. Generally, if we are talking about human motivation, I would really recommend you a book called Drive by Daniel Pink. It's immensely powerful, and Daniel speaks about 3 factors for better performance and personal satisfaction: autonomy, mastery, and purpose. Stick and carrot are not in the picture for, if you wish, high-tech jobs or jobs which are not like basic and mechanical. Those 3 are those who motivate and really drive people: autonomy, mastery, and purpose. We're going to talk about that. It's all about human rational and how human thinks. And humans are irrational, and we need to be ready for that. There are a lot of books on this subject. For example, Predictably Irrational by Dan Ariely. This is something that can help you know how people will behave, or Sway, The Irresistible Pull of Irrational Behavior by Ori and Ron Brafman. All those books are actually will help you understand the world of other person. If we want to put it very simply, when we talk about DevOps transformation, what we want what people want is to leave their mark on their organization. If you want a legacy, but something that they changed for good. But what you need to remember is that different people might have different barriers. So they might have motivation, but they also might have barriers. What barriers do we have? For example, how people are measured. If their metrics allow them for implementing DevOps. Another one, what will be their boss's reaction? If they try and help you, what will happen? What their boss will say? The next question is, if what you want them to do is even interesting for them, will they enjoy it? Will it help them be promoted? How helping you will affect their careers? What about the reaction of their colleagues, of their teams, of their peers? How they will react if they will help you? Will their colleagues feel threatened? Will their colleagues feel that, you know, he's a smart pants that try to get ahead of them? All those are valid questions. Do they even have the capacity to help you? They might want to, but they are just overloaded. What is their character? Are they even the ally and the willing to help type? Maybe they are just don't. And obviously, let's not forget that all of us have stuff outside of work that might affect their ability to help you. So basically what you need to remember is what motivates people and what barriers do they have. Once you nail those two, the next question is how other people are measured, because this is critical to understand if they can help you or not. And getting back to the State of DevOps report, those are the performance metrics for DevOps. And if you can show the other person that helping you will drive those metrics forward, this is how you tell them, hey, you are making a difference. You took the organization from a bad place to a better place in DevOps, and this is what we try to achieve. Now, where do we look for those clues on how people are measured? First of all, it might be a public information in terms of key results, like OKRs. If they are published, here you go. This is where you can check the alignment between the metrics. Another source is backlogs. You can see what our people are driving to and how much are they overloaded. Presentations, kickoff meetings, all company hands-on, all hands, company all hands, and the other type of like corporate meetings and the materials that are used in them can give you the idea of how people are measured. But obviously, getting back to the point I already made, the best way to find people's motivation is by socializing with them. And that's the water cooler talk that we don't have, but hopefully we'll have back soon in one way or another. And now let's talk about what really motivates other people. Obviously, we all know how bad the generalizations are, and everybody have their own world, which is unique, but we will try and generalize and kind of put people in this pigeonholes based on their job and assign them motivations on this autonomy, mastery, purpose scale with the small addition of fear of DevOps. What those people fear when they think about DevOps, how DevOps threaten them. So there are tons of participants that we need to bring aboard our DevOps transformation. Is obviously the developers and the open, the QA, but also security and product and tons of other stakeholders. And that's a matrix that we can spend hours trying to pinpoint the motivation on each and every scale for each and every organization, but I will just give you a couple of examples so you will understand what I'm talking about. So let's start with developers and their autonomy. How DevOps help developers to be autonomous? Well, it's right there. You don't need system administrators to deploy. You can put your code in production by yourself. You can see the impact that your code is making with the customers without any middleman that will slow you down. Does it sound great? Yes, you want DevOps. And what are the fears of developers? How DevOps is threatening them, where that's very clear as well. DevOps sound like system administrators that want to offload some of their work on developers, because developers only write code. Why should we deploy now? Or why should be on call on 3 a.m.? We don't want that, and DevOps will offload more work for us. This is the fear that we need to work with in order to convince developers that DevOps is in their best interest. Let's look at the ops now. With ops, it's pretty clear, because DevOps is an ops idea in the end of the day to make their work easier. So what is the mastery of ops in DevOps? Well, all the new shiny and amazing tools that ops get to play with, like Kubernetes, infrastructure as code, service meshes, and what's not. This is amazing. It allows them to move forward with their profession, if you will, and it's obviously good for the organization as well. Let's talk about testers. What is the purpose of testers? What testers in the end of the day want? They want better quality. How do we measure quality? Is it in tests or in what? Obviously not. The only quality that matters is the quality in production. If we make sure that we put our software out there in production faster, more reliable, progressively, and what's not, this is how we guarantee what testers really want, and that's the purpose. Let's take another one. Let's take information security, and let's talk about what their threat from DevOps is. For them, the threat is very simple. Now we move too fast. The developers make horrible security flows. And next thing we know, it's in production and our application is vulnerable. And we, the information security people, are going to take the fault. How that can be mitigated, we're going to talk with them about how the pipeline can guarantee security, etc., etc. This is the fear that we need to work with. And the last one, let's talk about product managers and their mastery. What is the mastery of product manager? The mastery is to know what feature the user wants. How it's even possible? We don't have this feature. We cannot ask the user if they like it or not. We need to guess. Well, it is guessing, and it's guessing in the form of experimentation. DevOps allows putting more features out there more frequently, actually allowing this experimentation. If we can make this point that you will be able to test more features and decide what works and what's not with real customers more frequently, this is something that product managers should be really excited about, and this is where DevOps helps them. Now, by now, you might say, you know what? My head is just exploding. It sounds like you want me to be master in all of them. You want me to understand delivery, to understand security, to understand architecture, to understand quality, to understand customer. How it is even possible? Is it in like rainbow farting unicorns? And the answer is yes. It's not possible. And the good news are you don't really need to. Instead, you need to become what is called now a T-shaped people, or there are other options like an M-shaped people and what's not. But the idea is you need to know a lot about what you really know about. That's the leg of the T, but also be broad on the top of the T and understand the world of other person, something that we just did. And this generalization, how wide your T is, used to be considered like a bad thing. It used to be like, don't waste your time on this. Instead, be a really narrow specialist. And this concept is recently debunked as being much less productive than having a wide T. And one of the great resources to read more about that is the book called Range by David Epstein. And if the books are like a lot and you want it in a concise way, David Epstein just gave, I think a month ago, a great TED talk about the concept in his book. So that's, I really recommend you to watch, and it's a great talk. So it was hard, but we managed to diagnose the world of other person. The next question is, what do we trade? What currencies do we have to actually trade with other people and get their support? Currencies, the term currencies that I use here is not in terms of money. There are actually different currencies. For example, inspiration related. What is that? Is I get someone really excited to help me. That's a currency. Task related. I can, whatever I want them to do will help them do their job. Position related. What I want them to do will advance their position. Relationship related. They will do me a favor. Or person related. They just want to help. What we want to end up is when we and the other person are mutually beneficial. What we do to each other advance our both. And that's like a symbiosis between the sharks and the remora fish when they work together and they both benefit. And I will give you one example of an activity that can be a currency on such a multiple levels, and that's a hackathon. Hackathon is really impressive because it's a multifaceted currency. Let's see how hackathon answers each and every of the currency types. First of all, inspiration related. How's that? Well, what happens during hackathon is the empowered teams of T-shaped people make an impact in a very, very short term. It's 2 days, and in the end of those 2 days, there is a new product or a new prototype. Boom, this is how DevOps work. Look at this example. You see how effective it is? Let's do it all the time. That's inspiration. Task related. The outcomes of the hackathon can be really useful for the people that you try to influence. And you can say, hey, I now have something that you want. Help me, and you will get it. And also, obviously, the other types of currencies as well, it actually checks all the boxes. Before we actually go and start influencing and start bargaining and start asking and convincing, we need to deal with relationships. And here, there is not much to be done, right? In the end of the day, if your boss doesn't love you, your boss doesn't love you, and they won't give you anything that you want. And the only way to get around it is make people like you, and make people like you is about human psychology. So we talk about a couple of those books. There are much more, but basically for likable people, it's much easier to influence for everything. So if that's your goal, make sure to score some points and be liked by your organization. You might have the brilliant ideas. You might be the right person with the right opinions, but if people just plain don't like you, you're not going to get very high, very, very far. And then when all this is done, you did all the preparation, you diagnosed everything, you prepared your currencies, then you're ready to influence. And influence is, make no mistake, give and take. Influence is this quid pro quo when you give people something and they give you something in return. As this something might be promises of a better future for them. It's something might be very tangible. For example, the end results of the hackathon. And in the end of the day, types of change are plenty. Interest alignment. What I want you to do actually helps you as much as it helps me. Barter. Help me convince someone about something, and next hackathon, my team will do the tool that you actually need. Owe a favor and call in a favor, just pure favor bargaining, which is completely fine as well. So with that was the model. That was the theory. And one might say, well, now I'm ready. I know exactly how to influence people without authority. But the reality obviously is that it's not that easy. And now let's talk a little bit about the barriers. What stops you from implementing this model successfully? And then working with those barriers, you will be actually ready to go ahead and give it a try. So external barriers are something that you need to overcome that will just prevent this model to work. One of them is power differentiator. Going back all the way to the beginning of the talk, when you remember the people who made the decisions were up there and Alex was down there. In some really structural cultures and really structural organizations, sometimes this power differentiator cannot be overcome. If there are 20 levels of rigid structure between you and people that you try to influence, it will be really, really hard. If you cannot go into your boss's office and speak with them openly, it's hard. Different goals. Sometimes the organizations are just structured the way that they incentivize the wrong thing. And if they incentivize the wrong thing, it will be much harder to do the right thing. Incompatible measures, again, going in the same vein. Even the end of the day, the measurements are wrong. They are not structured around company success, but just around some metrics which are completely incorrect. Then there is nothing you can do about that. And sometimes it's just good old rivalry. People don't want other people to be successful, and that's obviously a problem as well. But those are they're out of your control. You might try to work around it, but in the end of the day, those are external, and you just understand them. The harder barriers to see, to understand, and to fight are the internal barriers. The most basic one is lack of experience. You never tried this model. You just heard it from me. And next thing you do, you try to employ it on transforming your organization to DevOps. Probably not the best idea. You need to practice with the model before you can go ahead and do something huge with it. Blinding attitude. I spoke about that. This is kind of give up. Well, I will never manage to do that. There is no chance in the world that I will be successful. Well, you probably won't even try. So you probably won't succeed. Fear of failing, it goes together with the blinding attitude. Well, there is no chance I will succeed, so I won't even try. And the last one is, for me, the most interesting one is the fear of reaction. What will happen if you fail? Now here, in order to battle the last one, you should have what is called a BATNA, a best alternative to negotiated agreement. What happens if it fails? The worst cases are, I didn't think about that, or I will try to pretend that nothing happens. Those are bad because then you will limit your influence to a certain level for which you think it will be reversible. You won't allow yourself to go and be as influential as you can be if you think that you want to roll it back. Next one is, well, I know that if it fails, I will have no other option than leave. And this is just stressful. The only way to battle that is actually knowing what you're going to do if this is going to fail. Another thing that you need to remember when you have the fear of failing or this blinding attitude is that it's a long campaign. Sometimes first failures doesn't mean that you lost the war. You lose some battles, you give something up. In the end of the day, it's a long influence campaign, and you need to remember what are the end goals. And the last part of today's talk, what I want to finish with, is a set of common objectives and some quick dismissals for those objections that you might find useful. The first is, I already mentioned, in the fear of the developers say, on-call is not my job. I didn't sign up for being a sysadmin and debugging stuff in production. All I care about is writing code. And the answer is a little bit longer than I can employ now. I have a talk about that. It's called DevOps for Developers or Maybe Against Them. You can find a link for this talk in the show notes, and you can actually watch it or let your colleagues watch it as a dismissal for this objective. Another one is what's wrong with what we are doing now. We are a successful company. We've been on the market for years and everything is fine. What do you want from us now? And the answer for this one is, while you may think that you can remain the same, the market is evolving. And here's an example of a very traditional organization that didn't feel any pressure to evolve until it was too late. Equifax and their security disaster that actually forced their CEO to quit because all they did is what they always did, and that was apparently not enough. Another common objection is, well, everybody are overloaded. We're working so hard, we don't have time for new methodologies. And here, this is the only answer we can give them. Hey, sometimes you need to stop and actually make sure that you work smarter and not more. Another very common objection to DevOps is, well, the whole idea of breaking down silos actually hurting specialization. And yes, of course, when I need to devote my time, not only invest into the leg of my T, but instead go ahead and try to understand what other people do, I will spend less time investing in the leg of my T. That makes sense. But unfortunately, the length of your T leg doesn't really matter, because software engineering is a lot like an assembly line. And as an amazing Eliyahu Goldratt teaches us, optimizing anywhere except of the bottleneck means you don't optimize at all. And what it means is that if you are an extraordinary developer, but your bottleneck is in the QA, it doesn't matter how great of the developer you are. If you don't break the silos, you won't optimize the entire flow. And Eliyahu Goldratt is the author of yet another amazing book. I think that's the last one. It's called The Goal. And the Phoenix project is based a lot on the goal. So here you have it, kind of the source of the Phoenix project, if you wish. Again, if you prefer alternative formats to the book, The Goal is available as a graphic novel, which is kind of fun, frankly. So the last one is, and that's, I think, the most popular one, is we cannot release faster. We need to check for, and then there is a huge list of different concerns. We need to check for quality. We need to check for security. We need to comply to regulations. And you know what? There are plenty. And this sounds like reasonable. Yes, of course, we need to stop and make sure that we check for all those checkboxes. But the problem is, or the solution, if you will, is you don't do it on each and every release. Instead, you take care of those concerns in the pipeline, in the process. And this guarantees that every release from this pipeline will be with quality, secured, and verified by whatever regulation and what's not. So the only way to achieve that is through rigorous automation. and you see this picture and you're like, well, okay, here you go. People are fired. How can I advance DevOps if that will cause people to get fired? And this is not true. Here, people shouldn't be sad when they leave the shop floor or leave their manual work. Instead, they're going to work about something much more meaningful and much more interesting, working on the pipeline, trying to think how to make it better, more reliable, faster, easier to use, and what's not. And what I wish to all of you and to our Alex is that they manage this transformation. They manage to influence, and Strong Fabric really becomes a DevOps organization. And obviously, with this achievement under their belt, Alex can only look forward for their next job as Chief Information Officer in another organization in order to help more and more organizations to transform to DevOps. So just to summarize, the 6-step Coin Bradford influence without authority model, and make sure that you practice it, that you work with the barriers, external, internal, and you know how to handle objections. With that, good time for Q&A and some Twitter ads. I'm at Jabarch on Twitter. This is DevOps Underground. They have their own Twitter handle as well. And if you go to jabarch.com/show notes, you will find the slides, the video, all the links for everything. And don't forget the raffle for the amazing Mavic Mini. It's a really, really nice drone. With that, questions. Thank you.
Hi, so Baruch, thank you a lot. So we followed with my kid, and honestly, your way of describing with cartoons and everything, we enjoyed a lot. So thank you really.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was. I remember the last time you were in London. Yeah, we had you had similar cool slides. I don't know where you find those, but it's the cool slides, cool slides. Yeah, thank you. And yeah, if there are any questions, are welcome. And Baruch also provided the Twitter link, and we will also publish the recording. By the way, recording will be available soon, also in the community, our social media links. And it was a pleasure again to host Baruch. Thank you again.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so seems everything is bright clear, bright clear for everybody. So yeah, and anytime if in upcoming questions, I think you are a social guy. I know this from social media, so you'll be happy always to respond.
Oh, absolutely,
those type of
absolutely.
questions.
Hit me up for any questions or discussions, and let's talk about whatever you wanna talk about. There is a question of how to enter the drone draw. Well, you go to either Jeffrey Thompson's show notes and then fill the form, or there is a link that Ari posted previously on Bitly. You can just click that. At the end of the day, you just enter the, you fill the form.
Okay, thank you everybody. Today there was great attendance, and thank you for your interest. Next time, follow us in our upcoming meetups. We'll continue doing meetups next month, and also other month, and on December as well. I think we have already published for till end of maybe February. You can check our meetup page, and show notes page has no link to the row. Okay, question for you maybe.
Ari, so David here mentioned that there is no form. I see the form. It's just, you scroll down, it's under the slides on the right side of the links. You know what? Let me Let me share my screen real quick, and
Okay, it will be maybe
and
practical.
I will just show the Fox. Where is it? So here you go. Right. So you go to jeffrey.com/show notes, the URL, and then there is DevOps Underground UK. This is the talk. You click on it, and here are the slides. This is where I will link the video once it's out there. Those are all the links, everything, and this is the form to win the drone. I hope now it's clear. David, let us know if you find it. Okay, David got it. Perfect.
And before closing, any last sentences or words, Ari, from your side, if you want?
No, this is great. We really appreciate being part of your community, even though I'm overseas. It's just, you know, it's the bright side of this Corona that we get to have a lot more community with the rest of the world. Though we would love to be on site, I think everyone here would agree we need to share some beers and pizza sometime soon and get some stickers from Baruch. Truly is great, and I want to thank you, Dorian and Owner, and everyone else who makes keeps these community events going, because, you know, it's a lot of dedication and volunteer time that you put in, and it just really means a lot. We need community now more than ever, so thank you for that.
It was an honor to host you again, and hopefully next time again in face. Meetup, maybe Baruch, maybe next October, right? We are hosting you every year once. So yeah, great. Hope to see you again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.